Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmic Ascension Waves of Light, or the Call. Many of you um, will understand what that means, and many of you won't. So Google Google that if you don't know what it means. And today's date is the 2nd of April 2026, and it is 10 minutes to 10 p.m. here in Ireland and also the UK. And I would like to welcome my very special guest, Michael Feeley. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Michael Feeley. I'm from the UK. I was born in the West Midlands, which is kind of the centre of the country, to a full-time mum and a full-time working father on a council estate. I was considered a substandard child at school by my teachers because I never really engaged. I never got involved in anything. I never asked because I never felt connected to anything. I always felt distant from the world. And I spent a lot of time, I guess, building up my own self-reliance in my own room, looking out the windows and just having these really deep adult conversations about the world and reality and everything else. And as I went through life, again, nothing changed. I always liked it to be my isolated self. When I was a teenager, I really got the inkling to look into Greek mythology. So I became a researcher of Greek mythology, which I loved. I loved delving into that kind of thing. But I always wanted to join the police force as a career. And after many applications, I eventually got in and I signed up for a 30-year career. And I was always on patrol, always on the front line, always dealing with emergencies, etc., when they were happening. And it taught me the art of investigation. It taught me the art of speaking concisely and giving the evidence in a concise way in a court environment, in a written environment. It taught me how to piece all of this evidence together. And then in around about 2009, maybe 18 months before that, I began to get lots and lots of otherworldly things happening to me. And wherever I seemed to go, something would happen. So it wasn't the place, it was me. And, San Francisco, there was incidents. In the British Channel Islands, there was incidents. I went to Rome on a city break and there was incidents. So everywhere I was going, I was seeing portals opening. I was coming face to face with beings not of this world. I was engaged in all of these direct experiences of otherworldly natures. I didn't necessarily have, the evidence as to what it was, but that came after when I began to realise the experiences that I was having, and I began to have the scientific evidence to show what I was seeing. It then went into ancient mysteries. It then went into quantum equations. It then went into seeing advanced technology from other worlds that would literally, on one occasion, there was a see-through orb that came into my office. And I could see inside the orb, and it was some kind of advanced mechanism, some kind of machinery that was advanced. And it was about 200 or 300 Gs in advance of what we have now. And this
And,
just
and, and what did that look like, Michael? What did the machine look like?
it was kind of a very rapid rotating mechanism, but it was literally inside a clear see-through orb, and it just came into my office. So I was getting all of these different things, and then what then tended to happen is like an idea or an inkling, just in an instant, would appear as a fully formed concept, and in a second, you have the idea, the question, and the answer all in one in a second, and that has continued. And again, what I didn't realize is that during my childhood,
And just to ask you a question there, did you see that in your mind's eye?
no, I saw it with my physical eyes.
Okay.
So,
So,
so there's a lot. The experiences that I've described were physically with my eyes, and there's literally every day or every night something would happen. So that there's dozens and dozens and dozens of direct experience. And the estate where I lived was every road name was named after a particular scientist. And there's many times that I would look out the window and look at Newton Road, which was off my road, not realizing that Isaac Newton was around, kind of forging me really. The same as Nikola Tesla was. and they were priming me for now when another individual from history was able to come in, and that's Leonardo da Vinci, and they are all part of the same scientific team. So all of the science that I'm now dealing with and quantum equations that I'm getting, I have to work them out myself, but I'm getting them from three of the greatest scientists to have ever lived. And I've now gone to do my own experiments. In this last week, I've been doing my own experiments with magnetism, and those experiments are revealing a lot of things for me. How UFOs travel, how they're manipulating sound and reversing gravity, and what gravity really is, etc. So there's a lot of things that are coming my way in relation to space travel and UFOs and Egypt and the pyramids and the portal through Earth and different things. So that's kind of progressing to a really, really advanced, deep quantum physics.
And speaking of Egypt, that is one of my questions, because for those listening who don't know, through trauma, I began to channel the Pleiadians as a child and was given a lot of information about Egypt. So I have a deep fascination with it. So please share your knowledge about Egypt. But also, one of my questions is, what was your first experience of Egypt?
Okay, well, there's always been a fascination with Egypt. So, it doesn't get millions of tourists every year because it just looks nice. Now, there's this fascination with what is the true meaning of Egypt? What does it represent? What are the pyramids really there? Because does anybody really think that it's a tomb for a pharaoh? No. Does anybody really think that it was built by Hebrew slaves? I would hope not. There are people that do.
How could you suggest such a thing?
Well, I know it's just ridiculous, but
yeah.
People believe a wide range of ridiculous things. I once contacted the Cairo Museum and said, at my own time and expense, can I come and discuss true Egypt? And they just replied, no thanks, we're mainstream. I had pretty much the same response from the Egyptology department of the British Museum in London. It just seems that no one seems to be interested in the truth. But my first physical experience of Egypt.
And I'm sorry, did you ever contact the I can't pronounce it, Smithsonian Institute?
I don't know if I did. I know in that kind of period of time that I contacted a lot of organisations. I can't say specifically if that was one of them, but I certainly did contact a lot of relevant groups and establishments, and none of them were interested. So, more fool them. But my first physical sort of experience of Egypt is when I went there. I went to the Great Pyramids and I spent time in the desert with the Bedouin tribe and went to the Cairo Museum and different things. So that was my first experience. And then, of course, following that, there was fourth dimensional encounters with pharaohs and scarab beetles coming out of the wall of my house and things. So those were the kind of the first physical experiences, but it's always been a fascination in terms of, the Great Land.
And the beetles, Michael, were they? I've seen smaller ones that are about that big. Were they positive or negative for you?
No, it was positive. I was literally sitting in the living room of my old house, and I looked up, and there's literally a cobalt blue scarab beetle seemed to be manifesting out of the wall. But bearing in mind that the title of an Egyptian initiate was a scarab. So scarabs were Egyptian initiates. So, but this just literally just came out of the wall, and it was the same evening that I saw, should we say, a white chemical faceless serpent scurrying from me across the floor, which some people would say was a Kundalini energy of some kind. But it was like this period of time where there's a lot of Egyptian things happening. So it wasn't a negative. It was a sign. It was a symbol. In the same way that there's other times not related to Egypt directly, but there'd be times that I'd wake up in the morning and see a red rose manifesting out of the ceiling. I'd wake up and see a miniature star system in the bedroom. I'd wake up and see, shall we say, light codes, light writing going down the vertical blinds of my window. So there's all of these different encounters that were happening around the same kind of period.
So, Michael, I just want to kind of slow things down a little bit, although um, have you, because you just fascinate me. You're a man with all of this amazing knowledge and information that is really a privilege. So you must have come to the realization that, I mean, David Icke says this better than anyone. He says that um, you are not little Michael down the road, the born, insignificant. You are not little Johnny down the road, insignificant. You are not little Carol down the road, insignificant. So have you come to the realization, you must have, that you are an infinite cosmic being that has had thousands of lifetimes and are here now in this lifetime to bring forth the information because of the ascension?
Yes, absolutely. Again, you can use different terminology for the same thing, but in essence, I am a fragment of the creator. I am the creator looking back at itself. I am in multiple places at once. My awareness is here, and my awareness is here because I've returned to help people to get back to where they should be. So, people believe that they are small. People believe that they're insignificant because they believe the programming. And when you break free of that programming, you begin to realize that in a world that tries to make you feel small, you must think big.
It just seems to me, and I've known this for a while, but it just seems to me that I think you're one of the most important people on the planet at the moment, and that's not to give my power away or for anyone else to give their power away to you or anyone else, but there is a significant number of the likes of us on the planet at the moment, and um, there's also um, we just need to push through the BS and push through the negativity and push through the um, targeting and negativity, whatever form that comes, even if it comes from within the disclosure movement. So anyway, I'm going to put myself on mute and please share.
No, I was going to say again, not in an offensive or belittling way, but I have very, very, very little time for disclosure movements, for New Age, for ufology groups, for truth groups, because I've said for a long, long time there's very little truth in truth groups. There's very little depth in ufology. There's very little depth in any of these things. So I have no time for them, and I distance myself from them.
So where do you fit in, Michael?
I don't. That when you look at Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper painting, the scene is secretly describing a group of emetics that don't fit in anywhere. And they were known as the secret 13th tribe. That is who I am. And I don't fit in to anywhere. And, when I did a conference talk a few years ago at a beautiful monastery, and I was invited to do a talk, and there's several other speakers. And there were singers there were speakers there, but I was the only one that was speaking about the things that I speak about. And people said to me, you were the odd one out. And I said, no, actually, I was the odd one in. Because if you look at the venue, what I was talking about matched perfectly where we were. And so I was the odd one in. But I tend not to be able to fit in, but I do fit in because I just concentrate on what I'm there to do. And what I'm there to do is share the information that I have, and what everybody else is doing is their business. And I really don't give my time and attention to what other people are doing. And sometimes there's a lot of times that I get invited by organisers that say, "Be a guest of mine at my conference," and I gently say, "No, I don't want to." Not because it's not a good conference, not because it's good people speaking there, but I don't feel the need. And if I don't feel the need, I'm not going to do it to satisfy somebody else's expectations. So I just concentrate on what I have to do, but I tend to not fit in anywhere, and I'm good with that.
Oh, so it sounds like you're a leader, not a follower.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't necessarily think I think about it in those terms, really, but I guess these are titles that someone else gives you. I certainly don't follow anyone, not now. When everyone starts out, you go to talks, you learn from other people, you look at their styles of doing things, but then eventually you start standing firm by yourself. And I don't feel the need to watch anyone, follow anyone, be associated with anyone. And I don't feel any isolation, I don't feel any loneliness with that. I am perfectly happy in my own sphere of influence, and I don't feel any need to go outside of that.
Yeah.
Because when you have a direct channel, when you are have a direct communication with the greatest library of all, then you don't need to go anywhere else. And that really is where I feel I am.
So, um, I I just think that your mind, I'm just fascinated by it because of the way the information comes to you and the way that you see it, like with the symbols and the information and the coming in through the wall. But also that isn't I know you know this, but that's also an activation for you to remember. But please tell us about the information that's come through recently, whatever you want to share about Egypt. So my understanding of Egypt is that and recently they found which was actually something I channeled a couple of months ago to someone. But anyway, and they actually found it, but the Sphinx, they found a second Sphinx that was mirrored. And during the channeling, they said it was mirrored. It was a mirror type of positioning. So they found that. And so my understanding, just very quickly, is that there's a vast areas beneath Egypt, and tunnels and just vast. And I've also been told that Egypt was built by the Pleiadians with the help of humanity, and that many of us had a lifetime in that time. But anyway, please share what you know about Egypt, whether you've known it a long time or recently. Because you have a book as well about it coming out.
I mean, I kind of, it's been just constant information, until now, which is becoming very, very intense and very advanced. But my bloodline goes back to Pharaonic Egypt. So I'm related to Meritamon, who's known as Queen Scotia, who was meant to have been buried in Ireland, who was the sister of Tutankhamun, the daughter of Akhenaten and Nefertiti. And that is my direct bloodline. In ancient Egypt, I was...
It's lovely to meet you again, Michael.
Thank you. And in ancient Egypt, I was an initiator. In other words, I was initiating new initiates into the secret mysteries, to the lost knowledge of Egypt. So that really is my direct connection. You know, there's been people that I've been speaking to who have seen me morph into an Egyptian and different things. So that is my direct kind of bloodline connection to Egypt. So what is Egypt? We'd need a long show to go into the depths of Egypt, but in essence, let me show you a few things on the board if you can see them. If not, don't worry, because I will read them out. So Egypt is the eye of the world. So we have obviously the eye of Horus, the eye of Ra, whatever you want to call it. The eye, the pupil, is Osiris, Isis, and John the Baptist, all in the one eye. Now, when you look at Egyptian eye fractions, I have worked out that each of them relates to a musical note. And that musical note, when played, is like a water cascading sound. Now, the Great Pyramid is a radio. It is an antenna. And what it does is all of these mysterious objects they found underneath the Great Pyramid are known to be a mechanical stress system.
Do you know what I love, Michael, about us is that we are on the same page, but we use different vocabulary.
Yeah. So it's a mechanical stress system which creates piezoelectricity. That piezoelectricity is stored in the limestone casing of the Great Pyramid, because I have a chemical formula that tells me that it stores voltage. Now, it transmutes that piezoelectricity into radio waves. Now, you have at the bottom of the Great Pyramid large stones, and those large stones are actually batteries. Now, when you look at the likes of the Baghdad battery, where you see this strange-looking light bulb, it is plugged into some big stones, and they are batteries. And it is those batteries that power the antenna and the radio. So you have a radio system, and the shafts are really wave guides. So they're vertically sending these radio waves out. The Great Pyramid is communicating with visitors, with inner Earth, where they're finding underground cities. And it is also bouncing off Earth's ionosphere, following the curvature of Earth, and speaking to other monuments and monoliths of the world. So the likes of Stonehenge, which I have personally heard, is a concentric antenna. And the Great Pyramid, through triangulation, and you'll notice that all of these ancient sites are triangulated. They're either a triangle shape or they form parts of a triangle. And the triangulation is how radio waves find other antennas. So the Great Pyramid is a central radio antenna, and it's speaking to a wide range of things. And it has its own mechanism inside in which it transduces electricity. So that is what the Great Pyramid is. But there's many other facets. So the pyramid shape then, and I'll tell you how the pyramids were built in a moment. But the pyramid shape is known as a triangular modulator. So in other words, it is a pyramid shape, but it is a sound. And that is the pyramid shape. Now, this also mimics the heart. When you put an ECG and monitors on the heart, you will see that it takes this shape. Now, in medical astrology, the heart is ruled by Leo, the lion, the Sphinx. And I was mentioning in my talks 10 years ago that there was two sphinxes on the Giza Plateau. So we have then the Great Pyramid, which is a radio antenna that is communicating throughout the world and other planets of the solar system through radio waves. And the reason that it is aligned to certain star systems is because it is in direct communication with those star systems. So when you get the universal word Om, O-M, Om, the sound of Om in cymatics forms a circle with a dot in the middle. This represents the Great Pyramid in the center of the landmass of Earth. So you have the circle and you have the dot, which is the Great Pyramid. which is also the shape that the sound of creates. So the sound creates in cymatics. Cymatics is when you put sand on a plate and you introduce different frequencies, and those sand grains form a geometric shape. That's cymatics. Now, the frequency of often 432 hertz, creates the tetrahedron shape. So the sound is what created the pyramids. They were created by sound. And sound is the universal principle. In the beginning was the word. That is the universal voice. It is sound. And the universe is shape in motion. The planets, the stars, the solar systems, humanity, the animals, everything is a shape. But when I looked at cymatics, I noticed that when the sound is switched off, the shape collapses in on itself. Now, based on that observation, I realized that for universal shape to be maintained, there has to be a continuous sound. And that continuous sound is Om. Looking at Pythagoras when he spoke about the music of the spheres, what I think he should have been saying is the music or the sound that maintains the spheres, because that, in my opinion, is what he heard. It is the sound that maintains the shape. Now that is Om, or a humming sound, H-U-M, a humming sound. Now, the bumblebee, the bee, for instance, is held in great regard throughout ancient times, because it is the sound that bees make, the humming sound that bees make, that creates the hexagram of their hive. Now, the hexagram, biblically, is Moses, because Moses means from 6, which is the hexagram, which is the book of the macrocosm, the mastery of the cosmos. So the Great Pyramid then is a radio antenna that transmutes electricity that itself creates into radio waves to act as a communication throughout the world, inner Earth, and across the universe.
One of the things I saw recently over the last couple of months when I was doing a channeling is I saw the pyramid in Egypt, and I saw energy waves that looked a bit like lightning.
Yeah, radio waves.
Yeah, radio waves going from Egypt to Stonehenge.
Yes.
And other sacred sites. And I could see that it was like a communication waves.
Yeah, radio.
Yeah. And that they were sacred sites, but they were more than that. They were portals, and that the portals, a switch was turned off, probably, but most likely by the negative agenda, or the reptilians or whoever, and that they will be turned back on in our lifetime. And I think there's so much disinformation in mainstream science, and I yeah, I think your information is really going to take off over the next couple of years.
I mean, what mainstream science are finding is plasma clouds above the Giza Plateau, and plasma propagates radio waves, and it is electricity based. So when science have found these plasma clouds above the Giza Plateau in recent weeks, the longest a plasma cloud has ever been monitored to exist is 12 hours. So if you are finding plasma clouds over the Giza Plateau, there has been a radio transmission within the last 12 hours. That means that they are active and they are transmitting. And a lot of it is infrasonic. But I was on an interview with Dr. Sam from the Bosnian pyramids the other day, and I was telling him that the beams of light seen from the Bosnian pyramids are radio beams. You know, the big stones that he said they'd found in the base. I said, well, they are batteries. You know, and a lot of it is infrasonic, which means we can't hear it. But we have Anubis with massive ears, and a novice with massive ears, symbolically, can hear infrasonic sounds. So that's what they are. They're communicating through radio signals. And as I say, I've been in the centre of Stonehenge and I've heard it. But sound, I also have a physics equation where I can show that gravity is actually sound. Now, when you get, again, I've drawn a little Earth, a little UFO and a little Earth. So when a sound wave strikes a perfect vacuum, which is 0 point, the Great Pyramid, it flips its polarity. So in other words, it flips the sound wave. Now, the flipping of that sound wave is what creates anti-gravity. It is the anti-gravity that gives this timeless, dimensionless travel.
Now that's very interesting. That's very interesting because I was just going to say that I was shown a while back that the UFOs are driven by thought.
Yes, they are, but they're also manipulating the natural laws of physics and flipping them to create the likes of anti-gravity through sound. And, you know, somebody said the other day that there's other people that said that UFOs use Earth's energy. I thought, yes, but that's only applicable when they get to Earth. It's not applicable until they get to Earth. And they're getting to Earth by reversing sound waves, which is what gravity is. And by flipping that sound wave at 180 degrees, you are basically, when it comes back, it is in reverse, which is anti-gravity. And I've been doing magnetic experiments all week, which are showing this and writing down the quantum equations that I'm finding. So it's rewriting science, it's rewriting physics, because this is how they are traveling here. And, you know, yes, there's all of these different things that I am currently writing up all the findings so I can put it in one place for people to look at. But in essence, you know, gravity is sound by flipping that sound 180 degrees by certain manipulations that I've also discovered. They are creating anti-gravity.
It's fascinating the information you have, and it's also fascinating the information that has been hidden from us. And people like you are tapping into that now and being given information of the true science and how things really work within the universe, especially with sound. A lot of information about sound is coming out, and it's I've always seen that sound was the birth of everything.
It is. It is. When I did the magnetic experiments, I was finding that when you get a magnet and you get two opposites, they attract, and when you turn one round, there's that repulsive force. So the gravity is the attractive force, and when you turn it round, it becomes a repulsive force, which is anti-gravity, which science says doesn't exist. But if you just turn a magnet opposite round, that's repulsive force, that's anti-gravity. But I was finding that I was thinking, what is inside this bubble of repulsion? And that led me to discover that when you put objects inside that bubble of repulsion, they will align themselves to the strongest electrostatic force within that bubble. Now, that can be the electrostatic force of attraction or the electrostatic force of repulsion, but it will always align to one of those sides. And all of a sudden, you have these objects going from one pole to the next, which is UFO maneuverability. So that's what they're doing in terms of flying. I also have the quantum physics that I wrote down that show a propulsionless travel, a propellantless propulsion, which is thrust without fuel. And they're using these anti-gravity magnetic mechanisms in which to make these travels. But they're also creating portals, because what they're doing and you can do this even by acceleration. When somebody pulls out the plug in the bath and they see that the spinning whirlpool, that is two forces creating that portal. Now, if you go inside that whirlpool, it is dimensionless, timeless place, because there is actually only one dimension, in the same way that there's only one sense expressed in 5 ways. So we only have one dimension, and that is the dimension of vibration. There's only one dimension, but there's multiple different vibrations within that vibration. There's multiple different frequencies within that one vibration, and it is those multiple frequencies that enable them to exist in the same place. Now, it is those multiple frequencies that we are seeing as being multidimensionality.
Like a tree with several different branches.
Yeah, in the same as I've drawn the auric field. There are 7 layers of the auric field which relate to 7 dimensions of space. And we access the different dimensions of space, and we can do through our auric field. And I also, when you wish to rise above matter, you take a transit of 90 degrees, which is why you see UFOs taking 90-degree angle turns, because they're transitioning and rising above matter. So I came up with this little equation there, symbolic equation, of how to rise above matter. Now, going back to
Michael, you're writing there on the board that looks like that you're writing, yeah, the P and the B and the PD. When I was in Egypt, I found a stone with an Egyptian hieroglyphic on it, and it looked very much like what on the board.
Yeah, hieroglyphs are sound. Hieroglyphs are sonic knowledge, but that sound is creating the shape, and those are the shapes of the hieroglyphs. But when you go back to the sound of Om, which created the pyramid, which forms a somatic shape of a circle with a dot in the middle, that represents an inward force. It is the seeking the center, and that is a centripetal force that pulls it inwards. So there is one dimension of vibration which contains many different frequencies within that vibration, which gives us multidimensionality, which we can access through our own auric field, which is a vibration. It forms an apple. And the same way that Earth has a torus field, which is an apple. Now, Earth is Eden, and the torus field, the electromagnetic field, is the apple of Eden. It is the Big Apple, which is New York. Now, when people have this knowledge, because there's so few people with it, we walk what is known as the narrow path. For the group thinkers, they walk what is known as the Broadway. Now, what is the most famous street in New York? Broadway.
Broadway.
The Big Apple, the torus field of Earth, the apple of Eden.
Do you have you been given or shown or have any information on the Statue of Liberty?
Yes.
Anything you want to share?
Well, again, it's multifaceted, but in essence, it reflects the inner illumination. Now, when you look at Mother Mary, which has a numerical value of 152, you look at Mary Magdalene, which has a numerical value of 153. Add the two together, you get 305, which is the height of the Statue of Liberty. So it incorporates Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene. It faces towards Paris, which is Parisite, which is a group that were followers of Isis. Obviously, the crown is the illumination. The flame are the flame bearers, the flame carriers of humanity, and they are the ones that hold the sacred knowledge. Without those who hold the sacred knowledge, there would be no connection between humanity and the universe. So they see themselves as the Prometheus, the carriers of the flame of knowledge. And this is the Statue of Liberty. So basically, it is multifaceted, it is deep, but in essence, it relates to the inner illumination, the torchbearer, the light bearer that will lead humanity to the cosmos. It liberates you from material, physical limitations. It is the liberty.
one of the things as you're talking, there's a couple of things that are coming to mind. And one of the things they said recently in a channeling, they showed me that the Statue of Liberty has chains around the base and the feet.
Mm.
And then I was shown beneath the Statue of Liberty, I was shown tunnels and underground areas. Um, but so I wanted to ask you, what would you say to that? And also, as you were talking, when you said that the Statue of Liberty faces France or Paris,
Paris.
I was seeing that famous glass pyramid.
The Louvre.
Yeah, I forget what it's called now, but I was also shown that beneath there's a lot of Illuminati stuff going on around that, and that beneath that famous triangle or glass pyramid, that there are also underground areas that are vast, and that whole area is very there's a lot of dark stuff going on there. So
yeah, there's tunnels underground cities and rat channels, shall we say, from place to place to place, and that is really all through the earth. So, I mean, even simple churches, they have underground tunnels to other churches. There's always these escape routes. There's always these invisible places. As I said, there's underground cities underneath the Giza Plateau. So there is this life beneath the ground, and there are all of these connecting passageways and tunnels that connect to these places. So absolutely, and of course, there are the ones that deal with things in what we deem to be a dark way. That's how it is. But the Louvre in Paris, the glass pyramid, is where the Mona Lisa is. It's the art gallery. So there's a lot of things going on in a lot of places, and there's a lot of people doing things they shouldn't be doing. But you can't have light without dark. You can't have dark without light.
yeah. Wow, Michael. So you were saying something just now about um, how you have a lot of information on Egypt, which I know you do, and doing more of these podcasts or interviews, which would be great. I'd love to do more, even just on Egypt, because Egypt has got like I see it as being such a core root foundation of the planet. It really was a foundational, and it has so much information that it's just like it's a lot to absorb, a lot for people to absorb about Egypt and how, the truth that is coming out. And um, I have huge admiration for Trevor Grassi and the work that he's doing with other people. I don't know the names of the other people, but I know that he's doing really great work with other colleagues. And there was a couple of things that were coming to mind as you were speaking, and um, I'll talk to you about that behind the scenes. And yeah, I look forward to doing more of these with you. And is there anything else you'd like to share? How can people find you? And you have a new book coming out?
Yeah, I mean, the best place really is the website, which is michael-feeley.com. The how I would conclude really is say there's going to be a lot of things coming out soon about Egypt, but it will be a mainstream interpretation of what's been found. They can't control the information, so they will try and control the narrative of what is being found. So don't accept at face value what you are being told. In terms of Egypt, as I've said, is the eye of the world. Now, it is called the Blacklands, and it is called Kem the Blackland because it relates to the pupil of the eye. So when we start seeing this and this, it is telling us that Egypt is the eye of the world. Now, the pupil of the eye, is a subject in itself. but look into these things with an open eye, literally.
But that's also a symbol for the Illuminati.
It is, but we're taking that the Illuminati is something that is bad. It is not. We're taking, we're taking a lot of these things that we've been misguided to understand. And you're talking about the Illuminati as being a negative thing. The Illuminati, it just simply means to be illuminated. So anybody who is illuminated is an Illuminati. And of course, there are factions within factions, there are intentions within intentions, but it is not an overall badness, it is not an overall goodness. So again, we are told that Baphomet is the devil. It isn't. We're told that 666 is negative. It isn't. We're told that Satan is a bad thing. It isn't. We have to read.
Michael, you have to explain that. How is Satan not the devil and evil? And I mean, I'm thinking of like the church and the satanic and the underground Vatican areas and the Illuminati and the blood, adrenochrome and the children and the child sacrificing and all of that stuff.
Because there's basically entities that thrive on that depravity. But what I mean by Satan really means the law of matter. So anything that is material, anything that relates to a material world is satanic consciousness. So Satan is the law of matter. Now you need that matter as a resistance for spirit to grow. So satanic consciousness is a creative essential part for God.
Yes.
Now, the word God is balance, but it also comes from the word good. So unity and togetherness is the path of good, the path of God. Separation is the path of evil. So evil relates to our separated state, the material satanic consciousness, because we have fallen from a higher place and we've fallen into this material existence, which became the resistance for spirit to grow. So you can look at these things, you can look at evil and darkness and light, but darkness is the perfect state. Light is an imbalanced state, but it is that imbalanced state that provides the resistance for greater balance.
I would have said it was the other way around. I would have said light is the balance and dark is the disbalance.
Yes.
But so how would you explain that it's actually the other way around?
Well, because on the first couple of lines of Genesis, God said, "Let there be light." So therefore, God is in a place of darkness. So how can darkness be bad? How can darkness be negative? It is the perfect state of nothingness, which contains everything. So it begins as dark, it becomes light, which becomes greater dark. In the same way, spirit becomes matter, becomes greater spirit. So if God says, "Let there be light," and on the first day he created light, he created it from a place of darkness, which is the perfect state of balance.
Which I find I find that fascinating. But there is a couple of things that's coming to mind that I want to share, or ask you. But one of the things I've been shown is that it is an image of kind of that darkness, but it's the whole universe. It's like the dark night sky. And it was shown that God became aware of himself, but it was just darkness. And God became aware of himself. And then at the same time, or just after, sound was born, and thus everything else. But are you justifying, like when you say that the light is out of balance and the dark is in balance, are you justifying, are you like what side are you on?
I'm in the middle.
Okay.
Because the adept learns to walk the middle path. It is the middle pillar. It is balance, which is what the word God really means. So You are not influenced by the extremes of the pendulum swing. You are in the middle. So I'm neither dark, I'm neither light. I'm in the middle, which means that I'm both of those things. So
I like that.
it's not justifying saying that dark is good, because dark is the perfect state of nothingness. It is the 0 point. It is the void. And it is from the void that all of this emanates.
Yeah.
When I say that light and electricity is in balance, that is not a bad thing either, because it is that imbalance that is resistance for the greater balance.
Yeah.
And when you say about God had to look at itself, the beginning of anything is to be known. Now, if you are this everything contained within nothing, and you are not influenced by anything within that nothingness, and you think, okay, well, all of this potential inside, what would happen if that was expressed? And how can I observe? I create light. I create a mirror. I look back on myself. And this is when the light, the electricity, the balance was born. And from that light comes the resistance. So when it returns back to that nothingness, it is a greater nothingness. It knows itself, it can identify itself, it becomes self-realized. You can only do that by a feedback loop, by a reflection. And that is light. The same way as I said last time, if you, me, and Arnold Schwarzenegger have the same muscle base, but he goes to the gym to enhance his muscles. Now, what does he use in the gym? He uses weights. But what are weights really? They are a form of resistance. And it is that form of resistance that enables the enhancement of his form, which is what imbalance is compared to balance. So it is not a bad thing or a good thing. It is a necessity for the universal plan.
Yeah.
It is human perception that makes it what it is.
Like the yin and yang. And also what's coming to mind is that in 2019, 2020, I mean, you remember those years. I think that's when we first met. I was really shown that the darkness or the dark upon planet Earth and the negative agenda and the reptilians and all of that negative, perceived negative, really had a huge benefit for humanity because they were helping to wake us up. Without them, we wouldn't be on the ascension process.
People are happy in the acceptance that there are chosen ones of light, because that's a nice image. But when you say that there's also equally chosen ones of dark, they have a little bit more problem with that because they only want to concentrate on one half. But there are roles within roles, there are plans within plans, and you cannot have one without the other. So if there was only light, there'd be resistance, but for what? You can't have light without dark, you can't have dark without light. And when you look at yin and yang, it is one thing expressed in two ways. It is the same thing, which is really non-duality. Now, people will go around and say, look at all of these celebrities doing this. It is Illuminati, it is satanic. No, it isn't. When you only see duality, you use the two eyes, which represents duality, left and right, two opposites. When you wish to understand beyond duality, you do that. That is the symbol of being above duality. When you walk upon the checkered floor of the Masonic Hall, you are above duality. You have a greater understanding of unity because you understand that duality is really the same thing expressed two ways. So you are now seeing above duality. When you are looking at this and this, Egypt is the eye of the world. Not a bad thing. It is telling you. It is human perception and truth groups that I spoke about earlier, and ufology groups that I spoke about earlier, and New Age people who I spoke about earlier, misguiding you. And that's why, as I also said earlier, I completely detach from all of them because they are leading people astray. The middle ground, the balance of self, the salvational knowledge will get you to the place of ascension. Following New Age groups, following ufology groups, following truth groups will not. It is a race to the bottom.
Speaking of which, and completely changing the subject, did you see Richard swimming with the dolphins in Florida?
No,
A
no,
very funny story. So
no.
Richard was a man, a very interesting man that was abducted by dolphins in Florida and spent 3 days underwater. Um,
I did actually,
yes.
yes, yes. If that had been me, I'd have said, we didn't get on at first, but then we just clicked. I'd have said, I need that, like, I need a hole in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did actually see it as a headline. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's very funny. I don't know, like, you don't know these days what's real with AI and what's not.
You can't tell, and that's why, again, you just have to exercise that particular caution. That when you're seeing these images, you don't really know what they are, but the only truth is direct experience. And
Mhm.
again, that is kind of pushing people
I love that.
to that, that realization that you don't need books, you just need direct experience, and the only truth is your own direct experience. So forget the AI, forget all of these sightings, forget everything. What you directly experience is true.
Well, I can't wait to meet you in person, Michael. So, how can people find you through your website? And please tell us when is your book coming out? And that's about Egypt, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, it's going to be called the Giza Antenna, a transmitter to the stars, and that's going to again go into the deepness of what Egypt is, every part of Egypt. Uh, it'll go into again, all my magnetic experiments and all of this quantum science that kind of tells you how these beings are getting here, there, and everywhere, and how they're doing it through sound and anti-gravity, which is also sound and flipping sound. So there's going to be a new science, there's going to be a new physics, there's going to be a new understanding of how the universe works, and that's really how it is. I had no plans to write it. I was just sitting down, and within the space of a couple of minutes, it was an idea, which then gave me a certain vibration, which then gave me a title, which then gave me an image of a cover, which I then sent to get produced. Which
So
is
you were channeling.
pretty much
Yeah.
it's one of these ideas that just come through fully formed, and it's now already I've already started the writing of it. So I don't know when it will be out, but it's already begun. Uh,
Do you know how long it will take you?
well, usually a matter of weeks. Uh, but sometimes, like the last book I wrote, the movement illumination of the world, I spent many months on that because I didn't see any rush. There's so much channeling, so much quantum equations that were coming through each day that it never seemed to end. But I just tend to just go with it and just write when I feel like writing. But traditionally, when it starts coming through, it doesn't take that long.
Hmm. Well, this is fascinating. This was meant to be a short interview, but here we are.
Yeah,
So your website is michael-feely.com, isn't it?
that's correct. Yes.
Okay. So do you have any, would you like to share a message to uplift for humanity before we go?
Yeah, as I always say, you are not what you are told you are. You are not small. You are not insignificant. You are being led by people with ill intent. And when you begin to see through that ill intent, you begin to realize how big you really are. You are Everything you can imagine, everything you can think, you are. Everything that you want is already written. You have to align yourself to the vibration of what you want. So stop seeing yourself as insignificant and small, and realize that you are the magnitude of the universe, and live your life as the sovereign divinity you really are.
I'm sorry, I was talking away there and I realized I was on mute.
Yeah, it looked like a Charlie Chaplin film for a moment.
I did it.
Yeah.
There was a silent actress years ago called Mary Philbin, and of course that was my mum's name, and they actually looked similar.
Hmm.
She was that was when TV was black and white and the silent movies. So there was a bloodline there somehow, which is very I find fascinating because they did look similar. So anyway, I was talking away and I was saying that you took the words out of my mouth and that we are all one, which includes everything, the light and the dark. And it is the neutral path we need to walk. Although there is part of me sometimes that has great resistance to the dark and um but I think it is about balance, and God is everything. And I know at the highest level that that is true, that God is everything, or the um the divine, or the great I am, whatever you want to call it, which we are all aspects of and part of. Um, so with that, Michael, I thank you so much.
It's okay. Let me just say, it actually goes beyond one as well. So Buddhism stops too short. So we do come from one, but one comes from nothing. So there is a beyond one. And I've also found a code inside the double helix of DNA that actually says a message, which is truth beyond oneness. And that truth beyond oneness is nothingness, which is the perfect state from which all emanates. So it goes beyond one.
What book is that in?
It'll be in the new one.
Okay. Yeah, Buddhism was coming into mind then. And also some of the work by Greg Braden, who's just a great man, with a lot of information. And so until next time, guys, please come like, share, and subscribe. Sign up to Michael Feeley as well. He has different tiers on his website, so you can go and join and find out more information about him. And look forward to seeing all of you very soon.